Hi, today we're going to talk a little bit about the book reader activity badge for the Beavers. This is a pretty simple badge. I say that majority of Beavers have pretty much already covered this out by the time they actually join Beavers for the most part. And obviously with any activity badge in any section, or any other award really within Scouting, with the exception of a few of the top awards, anything that's done at home can count towards these kinds of activity badges. So if the beaver has historically covered at least one of these, then if they show evidence to you, then you can feel free to sign that off as a leader. So we're going to cover over the requirements here, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how this links into other badges and the Chief Scouts Bronze Award as we go. So starting off, we have design a cover for your favourite book, tell your colony, etc., why this book is your favourite. So obviously people will have, for example, a copy of the book that's their favourite, or will be able to take one out from a library most likely. Designing your own cover is sort of reinventing the cover of that book, just to clarify here. This very easily links into things like the Creative Activity Award. This would count as either crafting or constructing as part of that badge. And I'd say that certainly by making a cover, that would cover at least one of those requirements there. Moving on, we have read at least 6 books. Books you've read on e-reader count 2, obviously. I'd say that's sort of implicit. I'm not quite sure why I mentioned that, but if you are of the older generation, just make sure they know this as well. I would mention that if they read 6 books, chances are they are reading more than one book a week, especially as Beavers. So they would actually count this as a requirement of the Hobbies Activity Badge too, as the Hobbies Activity Badge requires that you keep up a hobby for 6 weeks, and then sort of show and tell about the chosen hobby. And I would say that by doing this and sort of reading 6 books, they would have pretty much automatically covered out that Hobbies Activity Badge requirement at least. At that point, they just need to show off their particular book or books they've read, and that would count for the other aspects of that Hobbies Activity Badge, and it would essentially be a free badge here. As long as they, of course, mention or show and tell these 6 books, which isn't part of the requirement here, it just says to read 6. But I'd say that if you're running this as a night of some kind, or a challenge to do outside of regular Beaver evenings, then just making sure that they come in one night with their 6 books and present them, that would be a very easy way to tick off all aspects of the Hobbies Activity Badge in one shot. If we move on a little bit to show that you know how to look after a book, this is actually more interesting than you might think, because there's plenty of news nowadays about Chromebooks and stuff being destroyed nowadays by people in classrooms. So being able to show they know how to look after a book can be something as simple actually as them just saying about how not to turn down the corners of pages, because that can damage the corners of the pages, and to use a bookmark instead. Not to bend the spine backwards more than it's supposed to be. That would be another way of doing that, and just making sure the Beavers know how to look after books, because especially libraries, school libraries, textbooks and stuff, making sure those are kept up actually helps with everyone, as taxpayer money, etc., funds those books and resources. Moving on, finally, we have make a bookmark and explain what bookmarks are for. This is quite related to the design a cover for your favorite book, in the sense that this would also count for that creative activity badge in terms of crafting and constructing something. So if you want to be very clever about this and make the cover potentially hardback, that would actually be both, I believe, requirements here of that creative badge. As construct is generally something to do that is physical and sort of hard, like for example plasticine or recycled materials. If you did some kind of um, cardboard or similar material as the basis for the cover, that would count for construct. And then a bookmark, which is more of a craft type thing, could be done separately as well. And from there, it's not too difficult to tick off the rest of those requirements for the creative activity badge 2. If you actually, I'm just going to move back up here as well. If the Beaver themselves actually owns the 6 books, I would actually count that as part of the Beaver sort of collector activity badge, which is a separate one as well. Where if they spend at least 6 weeks making a collection of some kind, then that would count. And of course, a collection of books is one of the oldest sort of kinds of collection in the world. So I would certainly think about mixing those together a little bit. There may be ways to link the sort of designing of a cover here with the builder activity badge, but the builder activity badge is specifically about modeling. So unless you want to go really in depth with sort of 3D designs for covers, that might be a bit more difficult to sort of link together. Other than that, that's most of the ways that we can link these up. If you incorporate photographs in some way into either the bookmark or the cover, then that would count towards a photographer activity badge 2. Other than that, we have to talk a little bit about the Chief Scouts Bronze Award, perhaps, and why that would count towards it. So, really, as I mentioned before, I would say that the bookmark and the cover would also count as creative activities for purposes of the My Skills Challenge Award. So you can feel free to tick that off or look into that as part of the Chief Scouts Bronze Award and making whatever session you are running this book reader badge in count towards that too. Other than this, there's no other ways that I can really see in terms of linking the book reader badge into the Chief Scouts Bronze Award. Hope that's been interesting. Have a great day. Bye bye.